You see, that's also another way these people, they always find a way to, okay, what is it that the white people do wrong? Two wrongs don't make it right. And then be like, okay, which white people are you talking about? They're not going to mention it. They say, oh no, it's because white supremacy, and it's because of white people and white supremacy. When was the last time you saw a KK, hooded KK walking down the street and everything, hunting black people? You're not going to see that. So this comes into this issue of like, okay, just because somebody is white, which means that particular person is a racist. These are the ill issues that we are even experiencing the social justice movement, right? Or just like, oh, leave the white churches. Why? Because these people are racist. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, where does it say that? So just because somebody is white, oh, why? Because they have white privilege, right? White privilege, white, they are white supremacy and all these things. But Charlamagne and all these guys are doing fine. Okay, they're black people. They're doing fine. They have successful businesses, and I mean, have you seen how many guests they go to Breakfast Club? So, like, who is being racist to Charlamagne? Who? But this is, these are the things that these people want to promote. And all this just wants to make black people to be angry so that they can look at white people as the problem. No, it is not. It is wrong, and it's pretty much sinful.
You, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks lived below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no, but they still were living below the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad. Okay. The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move forward.
Well, can I just address that? In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK imploded, well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home, a strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously, and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. Charlamagne, Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists. Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship. All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations like Black Lives Matter.
All of those things have always been under attack by white supremacy. You can go back to things like whether it's the Tulsa race massacres. Like every time black people do create these systems that are our systems and we are the entrepreneurs, it seems like white supremacy finds a way to destroy
every time. Look,
you see, they always, all the stats that Mr. Elder put forth, did you notice? They just ignored. They just ignored, and now they be like, oh no, every time black people want to do something, they always come. And this is a key example. They always go back to the Tulsa massacre, right? This is what happened in Oklahoma. This was the right in 1921. When we watched the Uncle Tom 2, and voila, lo and behold, that took place. It did destroy businesses, but 5 years later, they rebuilt, and they never took a dime from the government. So, but they don't want to talk about that, like, because those are the things that we always hear, right? Like, so when they were showing these things, like, oh no, these are things that happen. They had like footage, they had like pictures. So, like, no, look, this is how people looked in society. People were hardworking, they're doing all these things. They're just like, wow, we didn't know about that. We didn't know about that. So I don't know if Charlamagne has ever watched Uncle Tom 2, because I think if somebody has watched that, it would be wrong for you to be, repeating things that have been debunked. Okay, things that have been debunked. So I'm interested. That's something that I would love to know. I don't know. I'm sure Chad should send a free copy to these people. I'm telling you, But we continue.
Tulsa massacre, within about 5 years, that whole area was rebuilt. It was not even called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. It was rebuilt, by the way, by black people without one dime of government money.
Yeah, who destroyed it to begin with?
It was racists who destroyed it. No question
okay,
about it.
just making
We've
sure.
had race riots. So have
So
Japanese.
it was, so
Hold
it
on,
was,
hold on,
so
hold
you
on,
do
hold
agree
on.
that there's racism? I'm just so
You
confused,
know,
Mr. Elder,
I never even came
because
close to
a
saying.
moment ago,
I never
a moment ago, you
came
saying
close. I
racism.
never came close to saying there was no racism.
You just say you don't think it's systemic racism.
Not anymore. Obviously, there was. We had something called
But that was
slavery.
a
We had
system.
something
But
called
that was a
Jim
system that
Crow.
destroyed black. Hold on, sir. That was
I'm
a
sorry.
system that destroyed. That was a system that destroyed Black Wall Street. It's the same system right now that's not even wanting to pay those same living descendants. Because I know your position on reparations, but those same living descendants of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
And then you move, and then you go on to say that the system, the quote unquote system, is also trying to destroy President Trump. So I'm just so confused on: do you believe that the system can destroy or not? You pick and choose, sir, and that's what's so confusing to me. You just said it wasn't racism. Now it is racism. When it was time to build it back,
I said it
there
wasn't.
was no racism.
Are you guys confused? I'm not confused. Tezlyn is the one, she's creating something over here. She just, no, look over here, look over here. You see what I'm saying? There was a racist system that destroyed Oklahoma. So let's look there, let's look there. Nobody's denying that. Okay, nobody's denying that. But we are here now. We're in 2023. Can we talk about what's here now? Right. So even if they want to bring in the Oklahoma, just like, no, you know what, things happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, yes, but it was rebuilt afterwards. So what about that? They don't want to talk about that. So always going back to that, always going back. So this is, to me, I see it always it creates people just to be bitter. It creates things to be bitter. And the fact of the matter is, the people who are alive today, they never experience these things. Okay, they never experience this thing. It is their ancestors who experience these things. But every time it's the same thing. They always want to talk about. Always want to talk about. Just like, okay, so what is the solution? Can we now start? Is it okay to be talking about solutions now? How do we move forward from now on? But here we continue.
Racist.
I
I'm
said it
so
wasn't
confused.
systemic racism. Let's talk about.
So what
let's,
are you just hung up on the word system?
can I just make this point,
Yeah,
Charlemagne,
go ahead,
please?
go ahead.
Let's take Chinese Americans. Chinese Americans were the first ethnic group to be excluded with an Immigration Act in the late 1800s. They had riots against Chinese in LA, in San Francisco. There were laws that prevented Chinese Americans from participating in the laundry business. I'm in California. California, of course, rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II. There were laws that prevented Japanese Americans from owning farmland. The average Japanese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. The average Chinese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. How does that happen? It happens because of a strong belief in family. It is rare for a Chinese American or a Japanese American kid to have a child outside of wedlock, and a strong belief in education and a strong belief in entrepreneurship. These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right? Because
I didn't say blaming
I
everything.
know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community. But
No, you said
talk
that's
about
what
the
I just
Asian
said. I didn't
community,
say
but you
that.
talk about the Asian community. Asian community, it's easy for them to get loans for entrepreneurships. It's easy for them to get loans for houses. You look at our community.
Okay.
If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Right, don't have Wi-Fi, don't have education, don't have
one of
books.
the reasons I'm running for president is for school
Also,
choice.
would you say that is in our
That's
community
also
is
systemic. by the
it's
way.
also in our communities heavy food deserts. There's nothing but fast food places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Systemic too.
Boy.
Would you say that's true? I'm just asking a question.
You said a number of things. I just addressed one of them about
Sure.
loans.
Mhm.
In 1965,
I don't think these people want to have an honest conversation. Anything that Larry Elder said, they didn't even consider a single point. They're not even acknowledging anything. They're just like, okay, now let's move on, right? What about the school? People cannot get loans. Sherman grew up in a home with both parents. DJ Envy grew up in a home with both parents. Okay, when the family is intact and the family is not, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. But this is thing that's overlooked whenever it comes to family, because we've been programmed. We know, feminism yeah, has taken over. It's almost like, women like, oh, I'm independent. What? I don't need a man. Okay, I don't need a man. They're gonna pursue their career. They climb the corporate ladder, but they're so lonely. You see what I'm saying? It's this type of mentality of like, we don't need a man. We don't need a man. And so much so that men in our society are just looked down upon, which is wrong. This shouldn't be the case. So if you don't have a man in a home, it's going to have repercussions. In fact, there was a video that kind of like went viral. A little like a toddler, I don't know, maybe 3-year-old. This girl was twerking, okay, and the dad was just passing about twerking, like just smacked her, like, what are you doing? And he carried on, and people are like, oh no, he's wrong, he shouldn't have. I'm like, what? Like, oh yeah, it should have. Even a whipping should have been okay at that time, but no, It's just like, no, that was wrong for the dad to to smack that little girl, right? Like, what is it a 3-year-old doing? It twerking for what reason? So it's so crazy.
Barack Obama, who's in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 black people were applying for loans for mortgages and didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans. And they followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said, when you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of black-owned community banks around the country. And it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a black community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people. It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on 1 second, Charlamagne. But see,
what's not
you
true?
bring about facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because his father owns a house. Because his father owns a house, right? But my father,
because of you and the drive, because of you and the drive you put into
him,
it,
not own houses.
because of you and the drive you put into it.
We're not gonna have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak. I let you talk.
Okay.
We have a conversation. When we talk about it, right? It's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores. It's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many African American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurship. They are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it, and a 1,000 times less than our community. Will you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or a Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against whites and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man once said that if you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
let's just when you were talking
before she goes off, yes. But did you see now how they shifted? He is bringing them stats. Says like, oh, and by the way, white people are also not getting the loans. Okay, the Asians, they just lump everybody together. Asians are not white people. That's just a fact. But when it comes to this issue, it doesn't matter. If you're Asian, you're in the same basket as white people. Now, Envy said like, okay, his son is going to be successful and everything. Of course, his son is going to be successful. Why? Because the dad is in the home. Because the dad is also successful, so he's able to give that to his son. He's able to point that to his son. They don't want to extend the same thinking to other people, right? They just say, oh no, in our communities, who is refusing Envy alone, honestly speaking? Okay, this guy can decide wherever he wants to live. Who is going to say no to him? Nobody. But this idea of wanting to promote this issue, like, oh no, we're still being oppressed. Okay, we're still not getting the loans. We're still not getting these things. All of them are successful. Tezlyn is successful. Charlamagne is successful. Envy is successful. They don't want to tout about their success. They don't want to tout about their success. Like, oh, you know what? This is what happened to me. Here I am. This is what I'm doing. Okay, Mr. Larry Elder, you're running for the president. What plans do you have? Okay, how can we support you? How can we help our community? How can we change, these talking points? That's not what they want to do. They want to pretty much kind of like embarrass Larry Elder. Okay, show him like, okay, kind of like he's a sellout. This is their tactic. But let's listen in to Lady Tezlyn. Okay. Here we go.
Talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion. You talked about how it was more black people that was doing it, and then you talked about how we're the smaller, other population. The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is black people. You seem to pick and choose.
I'm talking about the rate. I'm talking about the rate.
Whatever it is, the bottom line is it's more white people than it is black people. And so if more black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking
I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they say,
I'm not sure you understood. I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995, when 186 black people who were not getting originating loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back.
I'm not talking about
Fast
this,
forward, they
sir.
weren't able to pay them back, which proves
Sir,
the
I'm not
Citicorp's
talking
point.
about that. I'm not talking
I know
about
you're
that.
not,
I'm talking about your
'cause
response.
inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you
I'm
like
not
numbers,
talking about
Washington
I
Post
said-
said Black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinance of loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of
20%
their
are
credit
Black,
score.
and all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's 2023, not
I
1995.
can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Mr. Elder, Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers. They still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Mhm.
Nobody
Well, let
said
me help-
nobody said if you have a father you won't go to jail. Nobody said if you didn't have a father you were going to jail. My father never.
But
knew
guess
his-
what you did say,
Can-
Mr.
can-
Elder?
can-
I'm sorry, respectfully.
May I
Guess-
answer
no,
may I
let
answer
me
this
just say
question?
this. Guess what you did
May
say.
I
I'm
answer this
gonna help you
question?
because I know-
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 8, when he was 13 years old, 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saved his nickels and dimes from his job, started a small restaurant near downtown LA. Fast forward, he retires in his 80s. He owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, I know for a fact, Tupac, excuse me. I know for a fact, had I had a father, I would have been more confident, I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. How did they end up in jail?
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach.
I don't know, honestly. Did you every time Riley Elder says something, there's zero acknowledgement. You can have a debate. There's nothing wrong with them agreeing, right? Riley Elder just told them, like, oh, my dad didn't know how to read. They were poor, all this, but this is what he was able to do. Not even a single, like, oh, wow, good for you. Wow, congratulations. That despite all that circumstances, here you are running for the president, right? Running for the office of the president. None. They do not acknowledge any of that. And then she says, my apologies. No, that's very condescending. She's very rude. She doesn't know how to talk to people. Zero respect. Like, it's just so wrong. Like, I don't know why they do
The answer
this.
that I knew you were
Couldn't
going to say.
stomach, couldn't stomach the answer.
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a 2-tier system. This
That's
is
right.
your words.
That's right.
It was a 2-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens
but it's
to
not-
black
but it's
people,
not
the
about race.
systematic-
It's not
No, I
about
didn't
race.
ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
if you want
So when
to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being
No, I
treated the
didn't
same
ask
way
you
as
that.
Hillary
You
Clinton, all these
Mr.
people are
Elder,
white, all these
you-
people are white, there's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my
said,
question.
You said that
You didn't hear my
you
question.
said some people commit crimes. So you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, them, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed a crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I
asked you
don't.
specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail. They all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump's not in jail.
Oh, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted. That's a far cry from being in jail.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got
though, sir?
arrested is what I'm
Well,
saying.
he got
He's going to
That is true, right? Innocent until proven guilty. That is the legal system. They know that, but obviously they're not going to grant that. Not only that, I don't know, is it just me that I'm noticing that looks like she's running the show out here, like she's the queen? Okay, she comes in, she says whatever she wants, like, it has to be just, Lady Tezlyn in the building. Let me know what you guys think. I just had to stop it right there, but let's continue.
to get arrested.
He got
He's been arrested.
he got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She
So was it the
she
system?
destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena, and she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the 4th time. It's
Hey, man,
unfair.
Right.
Black
By
people been
what, the
telling y'all how
system?
corrupt the FBI is for a long time.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL, the
That's right.
FBI,
J. Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat
And Malcolm X,
Attorney
and
General, Malcolm X.
Elijah
Lots of things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Oh, we're not defending the FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
What's your thoughts with
Justice is being
Florida?
served uncomfortable.
And you see that they're trying to take our history out of these history books and not trying to teach our history. What's your thoughts?
I find it interesting that the Democrats are the ones complaining about Florida. This is a party of slavery, party of Jim Crow, the party of the KKK, the party of the Southern Manifesto,
That's a lot of
the
systemic racism in there.
the party of Dred Scott, the party that I said earlier destroyed the nuclear intact family, and the party that is opposing school choice. And now they want to lecture Florida on making sure the proper history of slavery is taught. I don't know anybody who's defending slavery. Anybody. Not Ron DeSantis. He's not defending.
People benefited from slavery.
Actually, you're talking about one
Well,
line.
actually,
You're talking about one
there
line
is
in about
somebody-
127 pages of the study, and it is a line that was repeated almost verbatim in the associated in the advanced placement African American course that the DeSantis administration refused to use because of all of the sexual stuff that was in it. It's basically the
Well,
same
sir-
thing that was in the advanced placement African American courses, and now
Well,
because it's in that, all of a sudden the governor is accused of somehow defending slavery. He's not doing anything of the sort.
What did you think
Well,
about
sir,
that line?
you were actually one that defended slavery. In your comments, you said that, like it or not, slavery was legal
It
in
was.
response to reparations. So it's you that was defending slavery, correct?
Defending it and saying that it's illegal are two very different things.
Well,
Slavery,
that was- that was- that was-
slavery,
that was your
unfortunately,
response.
slavery,
Well, that was
unfortunately,
your response. That was
slavery-
your response into if reparations should happen. So
Let-
your
let-
response to that was, like it or not, slavery was legal, and one would think that that was a defense on those who were
well,
asking
you
for
would think it was a
reparations.
defense,
Yeah, let me ask
but it is not a defense. Unfortunately, slavery has been part and parcel of human history from the very beginning. Asians enslaved Asians, whites enslaved whites, blacks enslaved blacks, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans. This is a culture, the Western civilization.
Yes, that is actually true. But obviously, we're dealing with these people. They're not going to acknowledge that. Like, slavery was actually legal. Okay. This was a normal practice in history. That doesn't mean, like, okay, when you say that, oh, so you support slavery, like, no, you're just stating the facts of the history. Those are the things that actually took place, that actually happened. But they're not even interested to have any honest conversation. I don't know why. I get it. Like, okay, maybe it's good that he went there. People who can listen to it, they can listen and make their own judgment. Okay, there was actually a lady who made a comment. It says, like, you know what? I actually do like Tezlyn. She does a good job, and this is what she was saying in the comments. She said, like, but this, no, she was very rude. I didn't like how she handled herself. So I thought, like, okay, you know what? Maybe that's good. You know what I mean? Like, Raya Elder might not gain any points with these two over here. I mean, with these three over here, but the world watching, they should be able to make an intelligent, informed opinion. So I guess that's a good outcome. But otherwise, I don't know if I would if I could handle it like that. I would have already gone off.
That had a revulsion against it. We had a civil war against it. And we ought to applaud ourselves for doing something about this. This is a flawed country. It's moving forward. It's becoming more perfect all the time. Today, if you are born and raised in America, if you finish high school, presumably one where you can read, write, and computer grade level, which is why I support school choice, don't have a kid before you're 20, get married first, get a job, keep a job, don't quit it until you get another job, and avoid the criminal justice system, you will not be poor. And if you don't follow that formula, there's a good chance you will be.
The first GOP debate is coming up, and you didn't qualify, and I saw you write.
Well, you didn't say, I've not yet qualified. It's not until August 21.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw you write in the op-ed that the Republican National Committee has rigged the rules of the game by instituting a set of criteria that
Right.
is so onerous. What is it? Onerous.
Onerous.
Onerous. And
I
poorly designed.
mispronounced Tupac, so you mispronounced onerous.
That's
So,
right.
so we're even.
You are really petty, man.
And he said, and poorly designed that only establishment and billionaire candidates are guaranteed to be on stage. Explain to us why that system hurts people.
Well, I ran for governor of California. I got 3.5 million votes. It seemed to me that made me credible. The RNC is requiring us to have 1% or 40,000 individual donors. In 2020, the DNC required you to have 1% or a certain number of donors for reasons that I don't quite understand. The RNC is requiring you to have both of them. One of the candidates